life can hit like a sledgehammer. But guess what? We hit back harder. Welcome to Affirm That Sh. Somehow I thrive. I'm Jennifer Rogers, your no BS guide to turning life's toughest moments into badass victories. Ready to flip the script? Let's affirm that life can be a bitch, but somehow we thrive. Welcome to today's episode of Affirm That Sh. Today's guest is a woman whose presence feels like your soul coming home. Barbara Hayward is a wisdom keeper, an intuitive guide, and a radiant force of truth and healing, and someone I like to refer to as my adoptive, never have met her yet, mom. There's a connection with her that I am her soul daughter for sure. And with Miss Barb comes decades of spiritual guidance, experience, but her story first took the shape of pain. So she doesn't just talk about healing. She's lived it, she's breathed it, and she gently, and sometimes with a force of kick-ass, calls it out in others. Her authenticity is undeniable. Her heart's pure, and her delivery, just on the side of brass, but we wouldn't have it any other way. Today's affirmations for Miss Barb speak only to a portion of what she's lived through her life. We invite you now to find a comfortable spot in your space where you are, get settled in, and repeat these affirmations with us. These are long today, so get ready. Let's take a deep breath in, hold, and let that out. What was taken from me does not define me. What I reclaimed does. My grief is holy. My healing is generational. My wholeness is my rebellion. What was taken from me does not define me. What I reclaimed does. My grief is holy. My healing is generational. My wholeness is my rebellion. What was taken from me does not define me. What I reclaimed does. My grief is holy. My healing is generational. My wholeness is my rebellion. Every moment of pain, grief, and surrender shaped the intuitive healer I am today. I walked through fire and returned with light. Every moment of pain, grief, and surrender shaped the intuitive healer I am today. I walked through fire and returned with light. Every moment of pain, grief, and surrender shaped the intuitive healer I am. I walked through fire and returned with light. I am in full ownership of my gifts, my voice, and my truth. I am living proof that the sacred feminine cannot be silenced. I am in full ownership of my gifts, my voice, and my truth. I am living proof that the sacred feminine cannot be silenced. I am in full ownership of my gifts, my voice, and my truth. I am in living proof that the sacred feminine cannot be silenced. Stay with us. Not only do we have Miss Barb today, we have a surprise guest host. Stay tuned.
Imagine a space where you let go, where the clamor of the world quiets and you meet your truest self. At Yukio, through sound vibrations, Reiki, and the wisdom of tarot, we help you release what no longer serves you, align with your energy, and renew your spirit. Begin your journey back to yourself today.
Miss Barbara Hayward, and our special co-host today of Affirm That Shit, the one and only Portia Booker. You know her. She's the producer for this show and her own show, Groove with Portia. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today, for honoring this space with both of your presence.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for that. Wow. Wow.
I want to start really quick, Jennifer. One of your affirmations really spoke to me. We talk about grief being sacred. And I talk about this a lot, where to me, grief is that forced redirection, right? And how do we learn to reclaim who we are when we're forced into a space that we didn't ask for? And so Miss Barbara, those of you who know Miss Barbara, I call her the Oracle because she really is. Miss Barbara, I'm curious for you. What did it take for you to break out of that prison of guilt from the adoption that you had, that you had to do for your son? And also, what did it take for you to pivot your grief into a space of, I'm no longer a victim, I'm the one who's honoring this for my own greatest good?
Thank you both. I honestly, I don't know how to answer that, because I'm not sure that I did. And it's only in the last 10 years of my life that I've realized I always knew I was broken. Because a little bit about my past story, if I may, is that I was molested at 4, 5, and 6. I was raped at 12 by 2 gentlemen. I say that with tongue in cheek. And I had a baby at 16, a forced adoption. It was taken away from me at birth. It's a situation I had no say in, and it was just done to me. And I didn't understand, because we're going back in the 70s here. It was 1970 when I had my son taken away. And when I came home from hospital, and an unwed mother's home, of course, that's where you go, my mother's great advice to me was, put it behind you. Just put it behind you. After all you did was have a baby. After all you did was have a baby. Because back then they believed that if you didn't touch the baby, or if you didn't hold the baby or feed the baby or nurture the baby, you had no connection to the baby. They've certainly learned a lot since then. Now, what I knew, and the other words of wisdom she told me, was that I had to marry him. I had to hold on to my boyfriend. He was with me the whole time. He was a good man, and, well, young man. And she said, because you use goods now and nobody will ever want you. So they were the words of wisdom that I had. So we weren't given the luxury of understanding about brokenness. But I did marry him, and I went on to have 2 more live children. I had 8 pregnancies all up. I had 1 taken away. I lost 5 due to miscarriage, and I raised 2 boys. And so that marriage had no way it was to survive. We had no parental support. Both parents hated each other, hated us collectively. So there was this really big, and I've come out of a family of total dysfunction. There was 5 kids. I'm the middle one, and in my family, I was designated with the label to be the one that was least likely to succeed at anything. And so it didn't matter that, I was young at school, and I'm an Australian living in New Zealand, I would say. And I went to high school at the age of 10 years old, and I should never have been 10. I should have been 12. However, I had intelligence, and it broke down because on a Friday night, my sister, who's 15 months older than us, older than me, our Friday night entertainment was running down to the police station and begging the police to come and stop my dad beating up on my mum. And that was our Friday night entertainment. And so this was the lifestyle and the energy that I lived in. And so I can, when I look back, I can understand what was going on. But at the time, I didn't understand. I was 15, and thank the Lord and thank God, or whoever you pray to, I didn't get pregnant at 15. I got pregnant at 16, and I was his parents came and had a chat to my parents, and we were told to be in the kitchen, and so while they decided what was going to happen. And we were invited back into the lounge, and I went to sit down, and his mother said, "We're not going to stay, just stand up, we're not staying long enough." And she said to me, I've organised for you to visit our family doctor tomorrow night. Her son, I'll just say her son, I won't say his name. Her son will pick you up at 6 o'clock. Be ready, because you have a 6:30 appointment to see the doctor. He's going to check you out. He's already booked you into a girl's home to have the baby, and you are due to be there next Saturday at 10 o'clock. My son will pick you up on Saturday morning, and he will take you there, and that's where you will reside until after the baby's born. We've also started the action of adoption, so that's already started to take place. And now I've got to go, because that's just the way it is. And don't be late and resign tomorrow, because you're leaving work and you'll be in the girls' home on Saturday. So that was literally word for word of how I was participating in the decision of my own life. And because they were so forceful, that's the other thing that she said. Because in Australia, I don't know about anywhere else, you get 30 days to change your mind after you sign the adoption papers. And she said, and if you think you're going to run away or unsign the papers, my son will be charged for statutory rape. And if you want that on your shoulders, feel free. And so I was taken away on the Saturday, and my boyfriend would pick me up and take me home to visit on a Saturday afternoon. And there was one Saturday afternoon, not long after I started there, I got home, and Dad, being drunk again, he was attacking my older sister, and I stepped in, and that's all he needed. And he belted the absolute crap out of me. And so I couldn't go back home until after the baby was born, because I feared for the baby's life, because that's where the attack was. And so there had been so much before that with the way that I was ostracized and what have you. What I learned out of that was that I learned two things for me. I learned that men hurt me and women abandoned me. And so I had this absolute distrust. I have an absolute love of people and of humanity, probably more humanity than people. And so this was instilled. Unfortunately or fortunately, what comes with that, and the statistics prove it, is that 65% of women, girls who've had their babies taken away, go through psychological issues. And there's addiction, there's alcohol, and there's also mental breakdowns. And so I found myself in that marriage a few times, I think about 4 times seriously, in psychiatric hospitals. And so I lived that until until such time as I picked up a knife one day, and I said to my then husband, I I've got 2 choices here. I can put this knife through you, or I can put it in the floor. And I'm going to put it in the floor. You need to get out. You need to get out. We need time apart. We need to sort something out. Because his punishment was to go silent. So there'd be a month where he wouldn't talk to me or acknowledge me or anything like that. And so people think that people who speak a lot are more dangerous, but silence in a relationship is the most dangerous. And so he then decided that to leave on his birthday was a good idea. We'll have the birthday cake with the 2 boys, and then we'll pack our bag and leave the marriage. So that's what he ended up doing. And so I then had to wear all that. So I met him I met him on his 18th birthday. I was 15. He left on his birthday and I was 30. So I was with him half my life. And so that had a dire effect on the children, the fact that he left, but on his birthday. And he would tell the children that, well, your mother kicked me out on my birthday. So, there's a lot to deal with in there. However, out of absolute thunderstorm comes a silver lining. I met a guy and casually dating, but I belonged to a group called Parents Without Partners in Australia. We called it Parents Without Pants for an obviously reason. And so, oops. And so what happened there was that they had a psychic evening to raise money. So I went because I'm interested in all this stuff. And I remember I was still married, and I went to this guy Tom Ward in Melbourne. And I was your typical double-story house, 2 cars, 2 kids, holiday in Queensland, every year. So very typical Mrs. Next Door. And but I did have a friend, a lady friend, a girlfriend, Kay, and she would say, you so infuriate me, but I love being around you because all these pearls of wisdom drop out of your mouth. And I go, oh well, that's just the way it is. And because I didn't know anything about clairvoyance I knew other people did it, right? But I didn't know about it. And so I went to this Tom Ward, and it was a good conversation, I think, but he said to me, you're going to New Zealand to live. You'll be in New Zealand, living in New Zealand. And I go, oh no. Oh no. No, Queensland, if anywhere. That's where the in-laws live, in Queensland. It won't be. Well, I just bloody forgot to tell me I had to change husbands, okay? That was just a little bit that he left out of the conversation. So I went to this psychic evening, and there was a lady there called Crystal. And I don't, well, yes, you do. But I fell in love with her energy. The reading was so-so, but I fell in love with her energy. So I rang her up, and I kept ringing her up for readings and stuff. And I've got 2 little boys, and she said to me one day, I'm going to do an astrological chart on you, and I want to see something. So she did that. She invited me back. She said, I'm not surprised by your reading, your astrological reading. She said, I'm going to become your teacher. And I have, when I take on a student, it's a one-on-one. I only have one student at a time. That student stays with me until I let that student go. Now, what I'm going to say is very, a lot of people are not going to like it, but it's my world. It was my experience, and it had a lot of value in the way she taught me. But it wouldn't be tolerated today. I'm not even sure it was tolerated back then, but it was by me. And she said to me, you have come down with 6 vital spiritual gifts that you can use this lifetime. And it's up to you which ones, if not all of them, that you choose. I'm going to take you on as a student because of that. I thought you had that. I've sensed that you've had that, but I want you to investigate it. Now, the rules of the game were this. Never speak back to me. Never speak back to me. I did once. She said, if you do, I will walk away. Do not tell me how wrong I am and how right you are. Do not question me. And if you don't do exactly as I tell you, I will walk away. And the first rule that she said was, ask me anything. If you could formulate the question, I will give you the answer. If you can't formulate the question, no amount of me giving you the answer, will you understand it? So you must have. So I thought, because I'm an Aries, I'm an 8-day born, I'm a 30/3. I'm bolshy, I'm arrogant, I'm egotistical, I'm a woman, I'm an Australian. What do you want? Did I tell you I'm an Aries? And it's like, yay, I'm such a lazy person. I've got it on tap. How amazing. I can remember thinking that. And I can't tell you the question I asked, but by God, I know the answer. She leaned over and she goes, with the finger, she goes, do you know, Barb, that's a really good question. I really like that question. Now, what I want you to do is go out to the universe, tell the universe the question, keep your eyes and ears open. Everything out there will give you the answer. When you got the answer, come back and we'll talk about it. And that is how she taught me. She said to me, you are not allowed, this is what you're not going to like, I guarantee it. Don't write it in the comments. I already know what you're going to say. You are not allowed to own a tarot pack. You cannot give a clairvoyant message, and you cannot do a healing until I tell you you're ready. I said to her, so when is that going to be? She said, when I tell you you're ready. I already told you that. So can I tell you, it took 5 years before I was allowed to own a tarot pack, give a message, or do a healing. 5 years. Because
Barb,
what
I
she
want to
wanted,
ask you right there, when you're going through this training, at some point that has to break open everything you've thought up to this point. How did your thoughts on spirituality change during this learning and lesson period?
I had no idea about the spiritual stuff. I just knew about compassion. I just knew that I didn't like people. I knew I liked humanity, you know? And I was a housewife and I was broke and I was raising 2 little kids. I was drunk a lot of the time. I was trying to keep my head above. I didn't think. There was no thoughts. I just did. And that's the difference between then and now. We just did, and now we think. I'm not sure. So, but what she did say is the universe, nature, everything around you, if you ask the right question, it will give you the answer. but you've got to listen, you've got to hear. And I, just as an example of this, it took me 1 year of watching the ocean, the different seasons of the ocean, to learn about why we have a soul. But that took me a year. And the other thing she said to me right at the beginning, who is God? Tell me who God is to you. And I think you'll love my answer. Remember, it's a 1979, no, it was a 1980 type answer. It was, well, it's the man in the sky with the hell and brimstone. She said, yep. I said, yep. And she said, I want you to remember that. I always want you to remember where you are today in your understanding of God. Because what I want you now to do is, your journey is not to do clairvoyance. It's not to do healing. It's to get your oneness with your people going, with your guides and your helpers. You've got to have a relationship with them. That is your journey. Have a relationship with your guides. I call them my people. And you must find a relationship with your God, whoever your God is. And I want you to remember your definition of today, because over the decades, I want you then to go and look at how that has evolved, because you're never going to know how much you've evolved because you automatically do it. But if you've got a question like that and you can see the answer as it changes, as it gets deeper, as it grows exponentially, that will give you the measurement of how much you've grown. Because until you grow or evolve or raise your vibrations a little bit more, then what happens is your awareness of that goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's your measuring stick of how far you've evolved. And so I've been in this field now consciously, because I was 30 then and I'm 72 now. So that makes it 42 years. And that understanding of God is still evolving.
Miss Barbara, I
It's
gotta ask you, I gotta interrupt here. I'm sorry, but I have to ask this while it's fresh on my mind, because I think about all of the adverse circumstances you went through, what the 5 miscarriages, the adoption, the abusive father you had, the boyfriend whose parents took you to the unwed mother's home. What did it take for you to hold on to your faith in God and not walk away?
didn't have
Especially,
faith in God.
okay,
I didn't have faith because when it was my turn to go in and sign the adoption papers, it was always done at 11 o'clock. Because by the time we got out of there, lunch was always at 12, and it was a community lunch. Everything was community. And so, because we're going to be crying a lot and our eyes are going to be red and puffy, they didn't want the other girls to see this. So they were having lunch, and when lunch was finished at 12:30, then we could go to bed, and our meals for the rest of the day would be delivered. And so we had a chapel there, and we were asked to spend time in the chapel, and I prayed on it. And I'll tell you now, the song that was playing over the intercom was I'm Leaving on a Jet Plane. Probably symbolic. And I was praying to God. And I say to people, he wasn't listening because he was fishing that day. He'd gone fishing. And because I knew that if God had heard me, he would have found the way. And he didn't. So, I can have explanations. So my faith in God, I think I didn't have faith in God. I had a need to survive. And I think that's why my interpretation of God was the man in the throne, hell and brimstone. There was no faith in that. And I think that what happened is that with that 5 years of training, and that's because she said to me, and this is for our people out there, remember, this is the old way. I'm old school. I'm not intuitive. And that's the new age. I'm not new age. And I struggle to fit in these days because I'm of a different generation, but I'm of a different energy. And so when Crystal asked me that question, she said to me, when you raise your vibration because you're here to raise your vibration, you need to be living spiritually. You just don't work spiritually. You have to live the spirit. You have to be the spirit. And so she said, as you raise your vibrations, all the messages are already there. You can tap into anything. You don't have to train to be anyone. The vibration and the messages. And when you have your relationship with your people so strong, they will always give you everything that is needed. Now, I will tell you, they don't talk to me often. I often say, well, they don't like me enough, but they certainly do love me, because they understand that I've got to go and learn my own lessons and they can't alter that. And I'll give you a funny example of that. And that was that 5 years. And after the 5 years, I said to her, I think I'm ready, because she'd say to me, if your foundations are not solid, doesn't matter what size house you build, it will eventually fall down. If your foundations are solid, you can build any size house and it will remain up. Go get your foundations solid. And the foundations was creating and understanding in a relationship with God. And I didn't understand I was creating a relationship. I thought I was getting to know God, not having a relationship. And so a lot of things for me have sort of come in the back door and surprised me. And so it's the relationship also with my people, because she knew the work that I had ahead of me. I had no idea. I'm sure if I had any idea, I would not have started. I really wouldn't have started. But it's that is where did the faith. I worked in this field for a very long time before I really believed in it. When I started out, I had a girlfriend who passed over horrifically. And I said to my people, I will believe in you. I will fully believe in you when you can get somebody to tell me how my friend died. I don't want to know that she died. I want somebody to tell me how she died. And when that happens, I will have 100% faith. And it took from the beginning, I think I was about maybe 43 before somebody actually told me how she died. And so I worked in this field for and in the study and working for about 13 years before I had the faith in it. Because it was, to do readings and stuff is the most natural thing I've ever done. And in my head, because I'm not trained for this, I didn't sit down to train it. Because she did it differently, because she saw I was different, that it's just like putting on my clothes. It's just always there. I don't know. When I look back at my early life before 30, early life before 30. Good God. The way I knew things is the same as I know things today. So there's no difference. I don't I don't have to open up my chakras. I don't have to have the crystal. In fact, I think I own 3 crystals. One's a really big one. It's awesome. But I don't have crystals. I don't have the paraphernalia that most people have. If you can wake me up, you can get a message because they're always there. They're always working with me. I don't know how to walk without them because
Miss
I've never
R,
had to.
I can fully attest to that. That everything you're saying, that this is just who you are from the moment you wake up to the moment you lay your head down at night. You and I have had some beautiful conversations, some growing conversations. You have an innate ability to see the light in others, but you also have the ability to say, I know it's bullshit when I see it.
Yeah.
You are true to who you are to the core, and you don't need all the things. You don't need the new age terminology because you're Barb. Like Portia introduced, you're the oracle, you're the wisdom keeper. And the words and the stories that you have shared with us just in this short episode today, I know are going to make an impact on our viewers and listeners because that's the power of you. That's the strength and the love that you have taken and manifested from the pain that you've walked through since that early age of 4 to this beautiful age of 72, and now living and knowing your truth. So I want my viewers and my visitors to listen to you, to follow you, to take on all the guidance you so freely share. Will you please tell us and tell the viewers and listeners how they can connect with you and keep up with you?
Thank you. Very quickly, I have a Facebook page that is sort of successful, apparently. And it just happened by chance, as most things happen by chance with me. Nothing is planned. And this is the oneness. It's called the Old Girl's Spiritual Stuff. And I got if I've got a moment, but I got scammed about 2 years ago now, and they took every dollar out of our bank accounts and left us with $2.59, and so that shattered me. I was 70 years old. My husband's 70. He's working full time. We've lost absolutely everything. We're renting a house, and I felt that I needed to do something and come back into the world. And so I remember a friend of mine saying years ago, don't die with your knowledge inside you because you owe it to the world to get it out. So he said, your audience is waiting. So that came back to me. And I said, well, what can I do? I mean, all I know is this spiritual stuff. That's all I know. That's all I've ever been. And I go, well, you can't just I thought maybe I'd do a few videos and tell stories. I'm a storyteller. I've got, 1,000,001 stories. And well, you can't just call it spiritual stuff. I mean, how goddamn dumb is that? Like spiritual stuff, for God's sake. And then what popped in is the old girl. I go, oh, the old girl's spiritual stuff. Well, I am old and I'm a girl, and all it is spiritual stuff. So that sort of makes sense. So I set up a YouTube channel, the Old Girl Spiritual Stuff YouTube channel. And then I thought I'd better have an email address. So I got that email, the old girl spiritual stuff @gmail.com. And then I thought, well, I've got to do a Facebook page. And so it's the old girl spiritual stuff Facebook page. I now have a website, the old girl, no S, spiritualstuff.com. But I just thought it was the dumbest thing ever. Like the old girl spiritual stuff, nobody's going to look at that. Well, for the first 3 months, I got 1,000 friends, and I'm really selective on who comes on. I go through. You've got no idea what I do. So if I get like 500 requests, I'll only accept about 50 because I'm really quite diligent. I have a purpose for it. And then it was like in the next month, I got 4,000. It's like, what the hell is happening here? And so my hashtag is Global Goodness Matters. And I learned through all my struggles, if I can just, at 50, I understood my life a lot more. Now I do even more. But what I was doing, what I had faith in, and what God allowed me to do and pushed me and geared me to it, and my people worked with me, was I thought that my job was to save everyone. And that's why I did thousands upon thousands of readings, had my radio show and all sorts of things. I thought that was my role until I was about 60. I think I realized the reason I was so obsessed with all this was because nobody saved me. That's why I needed to save the world. Once I had that, and my son, by the way, came back when he was 43 years old. He's still in my life, and so I have my 3 sons. And that's when the healing really started. It couldn't have started beforehand, but I was just working with those obsessions. And so the old girl spiritual stuff is who I am, and I'm Barb the old girl, and I'm very proud of it. It's taken me 72 years to become 72, and I'm not denying any of it. And so that's where, and that's the story behind it. It's really simple. Everything about me is simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple. And thank you so much for letting me ramble and tell a story. And it's who we are.
Miss Barbara the Oracle, you shared so much with us today. Thank you. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I could listen to you all day, because I think you reminded us that age shouldn't define the impact, the global goodness that you seek to have on the world. So thank you so much. Well, that concludes, everybody, another conversation here on Affirm That Somehow I Thrive podcast. I'm your guest host, Portia Booker, and we are signing off until next time. Peace and hair grease, everyone.
You just took another step towards owning your story and thriving against all odds. This is Affirm That Shit. Somehow I thrived. If you're ready to keep kicking ass, subscribe now and let's keep breaking barriers together. Remember, life's a battle, but somehow you'll thrive.